Namaste. Welcome to Sakshi, Telugu Vari Mana Sakshi. We are back again with a special live immigration show given the immigration conditions today. And we have brought in a very prominent, very known personality from the immigration community. She has been an attorney for over 25 years. They have mixed the immigration and technology, helping Indian immigrant community with chats, forums, teleconferences, and probably thousands of cases that they've handled over 24 years. We have with us today none other than Ms. Sheela Murthy from the Murthy Law Firm. She has agreed to join us today. She currently has offices in Baltimore, satellite office in Seattle, then offices in India. Murthy Law Firm, they also founded Nayyak Foundation in the year 2001. Let's try to welcome Ms. Sheela Murthy and try to get more info. I have a lot of information about Sheela Murthy, but then I wanted to thank her first for giving us this opportunity. It's an honor to have you, Sheela ji, on Sakshi TV. Welcome to the show. How you doing?
Thank you so much, Dan. It's truly an honor and pleasure to be with all of you this afternoon or evening, depending on whether you're in India or in the United States. And we certainly look forward to sharing some very useful cutting-edge information, and just as important, to answering your questions and being there to support you. And as Dan mentioned, we have so many free resources on murthy.com, whether Murthy Chat, Murthy Forum, Murthy Question and Answers, Murthy Live Teleconference on different hot topics. Please feel free to sign up and take advantage of all those free benefits and free educational opportunities to educate and empower you so that you can respond to any issues that are raised. Thank you, Dan.
Okay, so viewers, before we get started, as a reminder, information on this show today is for informational purposes only. Any discussions should not be construed as a legal advice. If you need a legal advice, please log on to murthy.com, murthy.com, and you can find their phone numbers. You can seek a personal consultation. The information today is completely general. Sakshi TV or Murthy Law Firm, including agents of Sakshi TV in the US, are not responsible for your actions. So let's get started. Before I jump into the COVID-19, I'd like to know, you are one of the most influential attorneys. I'm sure everybody knows you, and they have used your services directly or indirectly, including myself, last 20 years. You probably jumped onto Google, then you have a link into Murthy Forum, or then I still don't know if you continue to do those chats, but then I'm a subscriber myself to your newsletters. So how does it feel being one of the top immigration attorneys and helping community for 25 years since you started the Murthy Law Firm in 1994, if I'm not wrong?
So it's 26 years and counting, by the grace of God, and even 5-10 years before that I was practicing as a lawyer. How does it feel? It's both an honor, but it's also very humbling, because to whom much is given, much is expected. And to the extent that people rely on the information, the advice, the knowledge, we need to be that much more accurate and careful, because people rely on this information: employers, employees, individuals, families, businesses, people from all across the world. And so the obligation and the responsibility is quite humbling on many levels. We do continue to offer all of the benefits, including, by the way, the Murthy Chat, which, though we don't have it every single Monday night like we used to for 25 years, I think from about a year ago, we only have it when there are hot topics and hot issues that are going on, because we found that with the forum and with so many other opportunities that we offer, only when there's something hot going on, for example, when the 2 presidential proclamations were released on April 22nd and June 22nd, then we saw like hundreds of people wanting to get their questions answered. So don't do it every week, but we do everything else that we've been doing for the past approximately 25 years. Again, the whole purpose is to educate, empower, so that people don't feel that they are alone in this wide world, but we are here to encourage and support and educate each other.
Thank you. Now, what is the thought process for the Murthy Nayyak Foundation, which you, I think, formed in 2001, which is to help the deprived children, women back home in India, or this is for, it's a worldwide cause. I know it's a not-for-profit, but then is this something to do with immigration, or it's in general that you wanted to serve the community back home? Was that the idea?
Well, it was actually to serve both communities. So my country of birth, of course, is India, but my adopted country is the United States of America. And so I feel a sense of love and loyalty to both countries. And so the way I looked at it is we got a lot of our benefits in America. So let's continue to support Girl Scouts, United Way, charities in the United States that educate with a focus on education, empowerment, protecting women and children, and immigration laws and immigration policies, pro-immigration policies that recognize and embrace the concept that America is a nation of immigrants, but also to support the country of my birth, the country of my parents and my forefathers and foremothers, who, for whom that was where they were born. And we feel that there's so much need and so little money there. You send 10 lakhs here, 10 lakhs, is not as much money in America. It may take care of a few programs, which for those who are converting, it's about $15,000 approximately. But in India, that can feed hundreds of people, hundreds of children for the entire year, in some cases with maybe a cereal, nutritious breakfast. So for us, my husband and myself, education, empowerment for women, for children, protecting both laws in that country, but more in the United States with immigration policies. Again, a big part of it, my father came from a poor family. His name is Sheela Murthy, and a very common name, as you can imagine, Srinivas in South India. And he always said, if you are fortunate to do well financially, Sheela, you have an obligation, a moral, ethical duty to give back to those who are less fortunate, because otherwise there is no benefit. The blessings have to be shared by many. And the more we give, we all know, the more we receive back. And whether you are a Hindu, a Christian, a Muslim, a Sikh, it doesn't matter. The policy of giving, the policy of charity, the policies of dharma and karma, every religion and every set of people across the globe believe in it. And so I feel like my husband, Vasant Nayyak, and myself want to do our little part to continue to contribute so that we and our, I guess, everybody can benefit from whatever little success we have been fortunate to get.
That's very divine, and thanks for that info about the Nayyak Foundation. Now, let's jump into the past and pre-COVID, but then after the new administration has come in, we have been seeing a tremendous roller coaster ride here with the immigration, specifically with the I guess the H1Bs. I think the green cards were stalled several years ago for Indian nationals, but then what is going on in general with people wake up and there is something new. There's a problem, there's a proclamation. I've been reading about a lot of places in media. If I target the H1B workers, there has been a lot of saying the H1B workers are the low wage workers. How far this is true? Is there a minimum wage requirement? How are they compared with the US citizens and the permanent residents? Are they low waged workers, and why they've been targeted?
It's an excellent question, Dan. So first of all, H1B workers cannot be low-wage workers because you have to file, the employer, an H1B employer has to file the labor condition application with the US Department of Labor to ensure that the H1B worker is paid the higher of the actual wage paid by the employer to all other workers, American workers and US workers and any foreign national H1B or L1 workers, the higher of the actual wage or the prevailing wage as determined by the US Department of Labor. So I don't understand where people say, oh, they're low paid workers. That is completely not true. So let's blow that myth out of the water. And second, I know you mentioned something about Indians are not allowed to come in as on immigrant visas. Actually, there is no such prohibition or restriction for any nationality being prevented from entering on H1B or on the green card, though because of the huge numbers of people from the country of India, and because there are per country quota limits, the lines for people to enter from India takes much longer in the employment-based or in some cases family-based green card situations. Both the presidential proclamations, the one from April 22nd of 2020, post-COVID-19 by Donald Trump, by the Trump administration, the first one focused on putting a lid or cutting off people entering from abroad on the immigrant visas into the United States until first it was only for a few months, and then they extended it till December 31st, 2020 to match the second presidential proclamation, which was issued on June 22nd of 2020, became effective on June 24th, as we know, of 2020. But that is the one that put a very big halt, if you will, on H1B people, particularly those who are stuck abroad, who are dealing with a combination of US consulates closed because of COVID-19 pandemic healthcare restrictions by consulates, US consulates all across the world, including in the US consulates in India. And also because now, in addition to the COVID-19, you now have this presidential proclamation preventing the entry of certain people, including those on H1B and L1 and certain categories of the J1 and the H2Bs. So now you have this additional, now there were exceptions or exemptions allowed. They're few and far between, and people are still trying to figure out a lot of what do these mean. And the consulates have not been completely open in explaining, even though the exception may allow for something, the consulates are saying, no, don't apply unless it's both an exception and an emergency for you to apply now. So there's a lot of confusion. Those who are stuck abroad are dealing with a lot of stress. There have been some clarifications, and hopefully we'll have time, Dan, to go over it in today's discussion.
Okay, we'll continue with the topic, but we do have a bunch of callers waiting to speak with you. For Sakshi, I think we have somebody called Sakshi from New York City. Sakshi, you're on the line. Please ask your question. Hello?
Thanks for conducting the session, so very helpful. So my question is actually, I'm currently on L1B visa and I'm changing from L1B to H1B, and my wife has to travel to abroad, to India for some other reasons. So my question is, should I ask my employer to file her L2 to H4 change of status, or should my wife travel to India and directly file DS-160 for H4?
There is once a person is outside the country, you can't file a change of status within the United States at all, Sakshi. So the only option that your wife would have is to actually go to the consulate or embassy to apply for the dependent visa, to be able to enter on the L2 by getting a visa stamp in the passport and then entering the United States, and the CBP, or the Customs and Border Protection at the US airport, also called the POE, Port of Entry, would give her the online I-94 card with the L2 dependent status. So there's nothing for you to file. Only if she's in the United States can we do the L1 or L2 to H4 change of status within the US, but she has to wait here till that is approved. She has to travel for some reason. The risk she's, of course, taking, like everybody, I tell people, if you don't want to have a car accident, don't ever sit in a car. If you don't want to get a visa, and whether that's practical or not, of course, is the next issue. If she is afraid that the consulates may either not open till December, or even after that it may get extended, especially if Trump gets reelected, whether some of these policies, because remember, they said that it's valid, both these presidential proclamations with limitations are valid until December 31st of 2020, but can be extended if required for the protection of American workers because of COVID-19 and everything going on with the health and the pandemic in the country. So that's the risk that any person who travels abroad, including your wife, Sakshi, will have to deal with, whether the consulates are open and whether the consulates will allow her to apply and get the visa when they do decide that it is safe enough for them to open up in India. India, of course, is having, as you know, a substantial uptick in COVID-19 cases compared to many other parts of the world. And so I think there is some concern and fear, even though some of the consulates have opened, they've opened very slowly and carefully for emergency appointments. India, of course, has opened up for F1s. They're giving top priority because students and universities are opening now in end of August, early September. But L2 dependent visas are allowed to apply based on the exemption issued by the US Department of State in interpreting what is an exception under the presidential proclamation, but it's still, there's definitely a high level of risk. So you have to definitely take that into account, Sakshi.
All right. Sakshi, you heard that. Thanks, Ms. Murthy, for a detailed explanation. Before we continue with the topic, I have one more caller waiting for a long time, if you don't mind. Malvika from New Jersey. Malvika, you are on the air. You can ask your question to Ms. Murthy.
Yes. Hi, thanks for the call and thanks for keeping this for all of us. I am on H4 and my biometrics are not done. It's one of the hot topics nowadays. Everything is being delayed. So is your firm filing any litigation like many firms are doing right now? Litigation for the delays in biometrics?
So it's
Hello?
yes, but then you need specific plaintiffs. So for example, if it's preventing you from getting either the H4 EAD, the H1B, the being prevented from working because of EAD, biometrics delays, absolutely. It's called a writ of mandamus, which is give me an answer in Latin. I need an answer, and forcing the government to say you cannot delay something even though it looks like just a procedural thing to take biometrics, if the net result of the government's delay, the bureaucratic delays results in you being prevented from being able to either become into status or unable to work or unable to get the EAD card, unable to do certain things that are critical for you and your family's well-being. Absolutely, we file a lot of writs of mandamus. We have a team that focuses on unusual delays that are not acceptable. And in 9 out of 10 cases, we find that as soon as you file that litigation, Malavika, immediately, guess what? Within 30 days, the government has 30 days to respond to that. And within that 30 days, generally, they will negotiate, they will go, they will talk to the government attorneys, the USCIS, the attorney for the federal government will immediately try to negotiate with USCIS to make an exception and approve a particular candidate or issue that person the ability. Now, if the ASC support centers aren't open, it adds another layer. But my understanding is they have slowly started to open many of those support service centers, but they're definitely taking a very long time and everything is going very slowly. Obviously, you already saw the EAD card lawsuits, and already the federal court has said that every single case, the employment authorization document is supposed to be issued within 7 days, which we know the government isn't doing. And I'm sure you saw that yesterday or today, they changed their thing about having massive layoffs of 70% of the USCIS workforce because they wanted 1.2 billion from Congress, which again seemed like not real or legitimate because according to the budget, they're already ahead of where they need to be, and they are more than able to pay their dues. And all of you all is paying thousands and thousands of dollars in filing fees. It is completely fee funded. They are not relying on our tax money for any funding. So I don't understand how they can shut down the USCIS or use that as an excuse to keep delaying issuing biometrics or delaying EAD cards or even opening the mail for petitions. So absolutely, Malavika, if you need to challenge the government, challenge them. We'll be happy to take the lawsuit. I'm sure there are lawyers everywhere in the country that have now become experts in litigation over the past 3.5 years, thanks to the current administration's unacceptable delays in everything from H1 petitions to L1 approvals to RFEs to denials. I'm sure you heard about the IT Serve Alliance lawsuit where they approved and now the entire policy of the federal government has changed. They withdrew 2 of their memos, have completely stopped issuing employer-employee RFEs and right of control. So everything, unfortunately, in today's climate, political climate will require filing of lawsuits in order to get a quick answer or to get a fair for justice to be served. It's unfortunate, but thank goodness we have a US Constitution and everything that works with the Constitution. So don't hesitate. And one of the questions almost all Indians and Desis ask is, will there be repercussions? What will happen to me? Will they go after me if I filed a lawsuit? And my answer is the exact opposite, at least what we've seen so far. They respect you more. They know you're not a doormat that they can walk all over. And people will know that if your rights are being trampled upon, that you will stand up for yourself and you have a backbone. So don't be scared. Don't be afraid. If you need your biometrics to be done and this is messing up your life and your ability to work, don't hesitate to challenge and do whatever you need to within the framework of the US law and Constitution, which includes suing the federal government, Department of Homeland Security and USCIS. So my advice always, even though I know Dan said none of us is giving specific advice, obviously, in general, my advice is if your rights are trampled, absolutely. Take the government to court. That's the beauty of America. That's the beauty of a democracy. And that's why we're all where we are.
Excellent. Now, with the upcoming elections in November, right? What do you think? What would be the political dynamics in terms of either or? Now, we don't know. The polls are what I see on New York Times and Washington Journal. It's a 40, 50, 60, 40. So it's just, hanging in there. But then assuming we have a new president or the existing president to continue, now, what might happen to the entire already messed up immigration system? So do you anticipate any serious changes, specifically with we talking about the merit-based green card system? So do you anticipate any changes? And before you answer that, we have a caller waiting. I would like to take this call with your acceptance.
Okay, so you want me to answer your question after the caller's question?
No, let's take the caller, if you don't mind. I kept him on hold. Thank you. Raghuram from New Jersey. Raghuram, you're on the air. You can talk to Ms. Murthy. Hello?
Hi, this is Raghu from New Jersey. Thank you, Dan. Thank you, Dan. Thank you, Mr. Sheela, for taking time. Extending your support for all of us, and then also saying that you're not alone in this. It's a lot. It's very kind of you, right? Thank you. So my question is not very specific to my situation. I'm on H1B. My question is related to H1B and green card backlogs. So last few days we've been hearing a lot of executive orders, one day ban, one day lifting. As Dan mentioned, you get up something, you hear something. We've been in the green card queue for like more than a decade. Unfortunately, we've been waiting, with all this, and then there was a new executive order that shows that there's a ban on family-based green card that will probably increase the number of green cards that are allocated to H1B talent-based green card queue or some sort of. There's a lot of news all over, right? So. But my question is to basically, with all the upcoming elections coming in, what do you see, for the people who are in H1B for more than 10, 15 years, waiting for the green card? So is there a hope? I just want to get your thoughts,
So Raghu, it's a good question, and it's clearly one that obviously directly impacts you and your family. I completely understand how frustrating it can be just to wait and not know what's going to happen with the laws, with changes, with so many things going on top of a global pandemic that kind of freezes you, and with new executive orders and presidential proclamations all over the place, changing and confusing people. The fact is that there are what they call per country quota limits in the immigrant visa context. So because every country has a limit on how many immigrants from that country are allowed to get the green card per year, and because India has such a big population, so it's basically a question of the fundamental rules of 101 in economics, supply and demand. So because the amount of demand from India is so big and the supply is so small, that's why you have such long waiting lines for India and live to some extent with China compared to almost any other country in the world, right? So is that going to change unless Congress adds more immigrant visa numbers That's not going to change because we know how many people are waiting in line. There's several tens, if not hundreds of thousands of Indian nationals waiting in line already to get, it's like visualize thousands of people waiting to enter through a small door. The lines are obviously going to get very long. Will Congress change it? I know there have been bills passed from time to time to eliminate the per country quota limits, but unlikely again that those will pass because the rest of the world will be impacted. And while politicians always try to make everybody happy to get the votes, the bottom line is if you make one country happy but make 50 or 100 other countries mad at you, they're probably going to have to see which is the lesser of the two evils. So I don't expect that to pass. The other issue where you said, so what can happen, will anything happen with, Congress, with laws, with, per country quota limits? Can I get some way my green card faster? What about what Dan said, or you pointed out, the high skilled workers, is there some faster way to get it? Although Trump initially talked about giving the green card faster to those who have higher levels of education, like PhDs or at least masters, several years of experience, that is just a wish list where the president, as you know, in America, we have the three branches of government: the executive, headed by the president, the Congress, where you have the U.S. House of Representatives and the U.S. Senate, they make all the laws in the country, and then, of course, the judiciary, which is the judges that then interpret the laws when there's a tussle between the parties. Because of the balance of powers, the executive can just say, this is what I would like to have happen as the precedent, but unless Congress passes the law, the two houses pass a law, you're not going to get anything changed. So do I see a major change happening? Unlikely. For those who go back many, many years, once you finished your 6 years on H1 before the American Competitiveness in the 21st Century Act, and before that, you actually had to pack up and leave the country once your 6 years got over. And then they changed the law, allowing for extensions based on the I-140 approval. So that was done because of countries like India that have such long waiting times that they felt that the people shouldn't have to sell their home, their cars, their assets, go back for a year and then again come back for 6 more years on H1. So now if you have an I-140 approved, as you well know, you can keep getting 3-year H1 extensions. But they haven't done anything, Raghu, to help you to get your green card faster. And that would be something that Congress would have to pass a law to change or increase the numbers of immigrants coming, because employment-based first preference gets 140,000 per year, 140,000, which includes the principal, family members. So if it's a wife as the principal alien, the husband and the 2 children, 4 people are using up 4 of the 140,000 in each employment-based category. And that's around the world, the 140. And then you look at the per country quota limits, it comes to a little over 3,000 maximum allowed per country. So it's a very, very long line. I don't expect that to change. And I don't know that right now Congress is going to change anything dramatically, because they are just trying to understand. And now you have elections and we don't know who's going to get voted in and who's going to get voted out. But each time we have new people coming in, they have to actually understand very, very complex US immigration laws, which are some of the most complex laws in the world. People think, immigration, easy. Immigration laws in America have been compared to federal securities laws and tax laws in the level of complexity and the nuances. There's black law and there's white, and then there's a huge area, as Dan and I know, of gray areas where whether it's memos and it's changes, and then you saw in the lawsuits, file a lawsuit, you win the lawsuit. It's constantly evolving and getting changed based on really how people interpret it, and different administrations, this current administration in particular, the Trump administration has really interpreted almost every regulation, every rule, every law in a manner that is anti-immigrant and takes away rights from immigrants, not just illegal immigrants, as we well know, even though that was his focus initially. It includes attacking H1Bs and L1s and legal immigrants, those like you who are following every law, every regulation, paying the taxes, doing everything according to the letter of the law, and you're still having to deal with what I think are huge unacceptable delays. But this is something you can't sue over because that's in the law, unless Congress changes the law.
Now, when you were talking about the green card per country, now recently there was an announcement from Department of State about the 100,000 transfer, the rollover from the family based into the employment based. But how many of these are actually available to the Indian nationals who are waiting in line? And does it also matter based on their priority date? Right now, I'm looking at the August bulletin, which hasn't really changed. I don't see much changes, still sitting in 2009. So what do you think? Is this some kind of a boon to their prayers, or it's just a tip of the iceberg?
It's a little bit of the tip of the iceberg. There is some benefit. So numbers do roll over from family-based into employment-based. But then remember, it's like a hierarchy again, right? So the EB1 will get the first benefits. So since India has a huge backlog in EB1, unlike most other countries in the world, and then China has a little bit of a backlog as well, right, all of the numbers will first be given to EB1. India, believe it or not, will actually disproportionately benefit because we have the disproportionate disadvantage because of the priority dates. But it's going to be less helpful for EB2 and EB3 because only if there are unused leftover numbers from that spillover will it then go to EB2 and then EB3 and go down that ladder. So is there a benefit? There could be, and I think EB1, that's why EB1 has moved to some extent a little bit more than, it was moving very, very slowly. So they are trying to use it. And again, remember, the fiscal year gets over on September 30th for USCIS, which is why they're trying to capture and use that within this fiscal year. Because if we use it, it's a use it or lose it. If we don't use it, then we lose all those numbers. So that's why the US Department of State is trying very hard to use up all of the unused immigrant visa numbers from the family that rolls over into the employment-based. And usually it's a very small number. Charlie Oppenheim, the head of the US Immigrant Visa Control Unit for the US Department of State, that pretty much his office and his team, and he's the person in charge. Charlie made it very clear to us in a teleconference we had with him a few weeks ago, that he didn't expect a huge spillover because the number of families generally coming, unused immigrant visa numbers are not in the hundreds of thousands, but I'm happy that there's about 100,000. That seems like a very good starting place. So it's definitely going to move and help EB1 in particular.
All right. Before we continue, we have another caller, Swati from Georgia. Swati, you are on the air. Please ask your question.
Hi, Murthy. This is Swati here. I have a situation here where I was working on H4 EAD, and I have applied for an extension in March, and it expired in July, but still it's in processing. And since it's taking long, I did not get even the biometric appointment. So my company filed me H4 to H1 change of status. That's after my I-94 expiry, 10 days after my I-94 expiry. So I got an RFP saying your H4 is pending, and when you filed it, your I-94 was not valid. So they said they gave some time and they wanted to wait. They wanted to wait until it's approved. So what are my chances? What are the options to try? Because I have 2 more months to respond on RFE. Otherwise, they might have to give on consular processing. I'm not sure about it. So can you tell me what are my options in that situation?
So I don't know if the lawyer or law firm who filed it for you filed it under what's called NPT or Nunc-Pro-Tunc to request a discretionary benefit and discretionary for the USCIS to exercise its discretion. The USCIS did issue a memo in March of 2020 and another one actually saying that because of COVID-19 that they should be favorable, use their discretion favorably. So I would tell your lawyers if they're not aware of these memos, there's 8 CFR, and I can even give you the exact quote if you like, where you are absolutely allowed to bring to their attention these discretionary reliefs that are available to you. and that you absolutely should take advantage of. So one of them, as I said, is 8 CFR 214.1C4 and 8 CFR 248.1B. And under both of these, the regulations, USCIS is allowed to waive the lateness of either an extension or a change of status if the delay was the result of extraordinary circumstances that were beyond your control. And you could explain that this type of delay by USCIS was not your fault. It was no fault of your own. It was clearly outside of your ability to control. And in fact, as I said, that there's even something else, the current, as we noted, there's a special situations page on USCIS where they actually explain and talk about how the USCIS may excuse the failure to timely file if it was due to extraordinary circumstances beyond the person's control, such as those that may have been caused by COVID-19. So your situation is perfect. You file the H-4 EAD, you plan to stay here, and generally when you travel abroad and come back, they give you a 10-day grace period anyway. So I would even argue that it's within the 10-day grace period that your case was filed. And you could explain that the length of delay, they said in that same regulation and the special situations page, that it must be commensurate with the circumstances and that you have to submit evidence to support your request, which the USCIS is supposed to approve on a case-by-case basis in their discretion. You could do that. So when it's discretion, lawsuits are less helpful because we want them to be kind and generous and favorable to us. So make sure that your lawyer uses and responds back with using the regulations, the law, making non-pro-tunc arguments, because you can even explain that because of the global health pandemic, traveling abroad at this time with the high level of risk, being in an enclosed airplane space for 24 hours, flights from India to United States to India and round trip is, very long. And to the extent that some airlines have slowly started opening up, but it's still not completely open for commercial travel from every city in India to every city in the US, I would absolutely make the argument and explain that you were really waiting, that this type of delay was caused because of the USCIS's delay in approving the H-4 EAD for you.
Right. Okay. So I have a topic here, but I would skip this topic for today. FDNS and site visits, you should, Murthy firm is doing a teleconference for, I think, both the employers and the H1B workers on September 2nd. If you go to the website, you can register and attend the teleconference, because I know it's a broad topic now, keeping the live show time frame in mind. Now,
Dan, can I get back to the issue about the whole thing where you said, will Biden will Trump will, what will happen to U.S. immigration? Do you want me to address that?
I was getting there. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. So again, like you said, nobody has a crystal ball. Nobody knows for sure what's going to happen. Biden has made it very clear that he's going to revert and turn the clock back on all of the presidential proclamations issued under the current administration that go after H-1Bs, L-1s, J-2s, H-2Bs, etc., because he said that they recognize and embrace the fact that America is a nation of immigrants. Of course, as all of us know, Kamala Harris, whose mother was Indian, Shamla Gopalan, is obviously half Indian American and half Jamaican American. And she has always been very proud of the fact that she is the child of immigrants, and they want to present themselves as the party that embraces the fact that America is a nation of immigrants. Biden has made it very clear, even before he picked Kamala Harris as his vice presidential running mate, that he was going to embrace and focus on making sure that H-1Bs were given the respect that they deserve because of what they provide in terms of high-skilled employment, high professional workers, and how they will actually continue to contribute to America's technological leadership in the world. And that if we lose H-1B workers, a big portion of America's competitive and global advantage will be lost. And so I think that a lot of the current policies that are going after H-1Bs as if they are somehow crooks breaking the law or doing something wrong, or employers that are hiring them are doing something wrong, is so short-sighted and completely breaks from the fact that America is a nation of immigrants. In fact, the current president, Trump, his wife is an immigrant. His first wife was an immigrant. I guess if he's questioning Kamala Harris's right to based on her birth in the United States of America, to be a vice presidential candidate, it's interesting. That means none of his children, except one of his 5 children, can actually even ever stand to become the president of the United States, because if a child of an immigrant is somehow precluded from standing for the highest office. The Constitution only says you have to be born in the United States. Even if you're born to people who are not legal, it is still 100% permissible for you to stand. And in her case, my understanding is Kamala Harris's, both her parents were actually US citizens when she was born in California. So I don't understand all of that, but the bottom line is we expect dramatic changes based on what Biden has verbally and vocally said. For those who watched the Republican National Convention last night, I know that they made it a point to see this girl in the center with a beautiful sari, a pattu sari, explaining that, taking the oath of allegiance, which I just watched, saying that they have been to show that he is for U.S. Immigration. In reality, of course, we have all seen that is not necessarily the case. And so I'm hopeful that anybody who comes up, because I've been an immigration lawyer, I've been a lawyer for more than 30 years. I have never in over 35 years that I've been practicing immigration law, seen the kind of singular assault against legal immigrants and legal immigration, H1Bs, to the extent that we have seen in the past 3+ years in the United States. And to me, that is not what this country is about. It is a great country. It's still got the rule of law. The Constitution is still the fundamental document providing very, very strong rights, which is why we are telling people, if the government breaks the laws, then don't hesitate to challenge them in federal court. That is your right as a resident of this great country.
Right. Okay. Before I do have a lot of callers here, but I would like to make an announcement. This show is brought to you by Hire IT People. And I would like to thank the staff for extending in promoting this show today. I would like to take one caller. He's been waiting too long. Ashish from Indianapolis. Ashish, you are on the air.
Yeah.
Ashish, are you still
thank
there?
you. Yeah, so this is Ashish here. I would like to thank Hire IT People and Sheela Murthy for giving us this opportunity to discuss about the current immigration status. So I have a question. I have my H1B approved along with the change of status from F1 to H1. So am I allowed to go for stamping to India or any other country in the current scenario? And how would the travel ban affect for people in this situation?
Congratulations, Ashish, for getting your F1 to H1B approved. That itself is a pretty big feat in this current administration, as we've seen. So that's the great news. The not so great news is that you want to travel right now. So if your H1 petition is approved with the I-94 card attached to it, meaning the change of status was approved by the USCIS, obviously, you can start working since from October 1st, if it's this fiscal year's, the new quota, from October 1st of 2020, without traveling abroad. Now, if you're traveling for family or other personal reasons, then all of the issues that I explained earlier in the discussion, to our first caller who called in, talking about the risk by traveling abroad, the risk of getting a visa denial, the risk of the consulates not even being open because of COVID-19 pandemic health-related concerns, especially if the number of COVID cases in India continues to increase. So make sure that you are going abroad with the clear understanding that your employer will hopefully keep the job offer open for you or allow you to work remotely from India if you get stuck and cannot re-enter back either before December 31st, 2020 because of the presidential proclamation, because you cannot apply for a new visa at this time to re-enter, or if they decide when you're abroad that they are going to continue or extend the presidential proclamation. Let's say he does get reelected and he extends it, then what's going to happen is you could be stuck for months, like several people who unfortunately traveled abroad because of a family crisis, a mother or father dying or in the hospital, thought they are going home for a 2-week trip to take care of their parents, and then have been stuck for 6+ months and don't know when they can come back to the United States. Some people have been allowed to work remotely and keep their jobs. Others have been told that they've lost their jobs, but yet they have to pay their rent and their mortgage and their car payments in the United States. Or in some cases, the family members, the H4 spouse is left here. So we are dealing and hearing of so many very, very sad, difficult situations. So unless something is life and death, generally our philosophy is try to avoid going when there's so many gray areas, because you're traveling at a huge risk, especially in today's climate. Okay. So Ashish, I know it's not what you want to hear, but it's the safest approach in my opinion.
Ashish, thanks for that call, and be careful. While Ms. Murthy is here, I would like to reiterate on one topic here, one point. Many of you are getting advice from people like you on WhatsApp groups and Facebook. It's very dangerous. So I see it on WhatsApp groups. I tell my friends and family that, hey, when you go to a hospital, you don't want to see another patient. You want to see a doctor. So you are going to get into more trouble. I know people say, hey, it worked for me, but every case is different. I hope Ms. Murthy agrees with me. So if you need consultation, I think Murthy Law Firm has done tens of thousands of, I don't even know the number, but then I'm assuming over the last 25 years. So you should take a consultation and talk to one of the experts, expert attorneys. Once again, for you people out there who would like to get that consultation, it's pretty simple, Murthy, Murthy.com. Please log on and find their phone numbers, including email, and the way to get a consultation. Now, since we were talking about the consulates, the recent change about the Dropbox, the traditional Dropbox from the 12 months to 24 months until the December 2020, is this like a chicken and egg story where, looks like something has changed, but, 50% of them always, they were called back for an interview. How does it help? I'm not sure.
So I'm not sure the specific issue you're asking, Dan, but we have been seeing where a lot of people are getting the 221Gs, additional documents, additional information. They provide the documents and then they're put into this gray area hold. I know somebody who was going back for provided all the documents in February, thought they would come get it approved within a couple of days. And then the COVID-19 happened, the consulates closed, and now they have nothing. And they are stuck in India since February because of this. So a lot of the documents that are being shipped, they weren't allowed to collect the documents, because if the consulates are closed, they don't want to collect documents and keep your passport and other documents with them, and nobody wants liability with everything going on. So I'm not sure your specific question, Dan. It seems like you said something about the additional 2-year wait and how that impacts the visa applicants.
I think no. They actually earlier, to be eligible for a Dropbox, they should have held the same visa last 1 year. I think they extended that to 24 months.
Yes, so that's actually great news. So that part is good news, because I guess the consulates have been closed for the last 6 or 7 months, so they probably realized. Plus, let's not forget, there have been multiple lawsuits filed against the U.S. Department of State, including on the issue of the presidential proclamation. And so I think they're trying to come across that they're doing all these wonderful things by giving 1 extra year, but 7 or 8 months of that year is already gone, So really you got 1 year and 4 months if you look at it that way, but it's better than nothing. So the good news is, if you had, for example, a H1 visa stamp in your passport, you now don't have to go for an interview, even if that visa stamp expired within the past 24 months instead of 12 months. So that's the good part, the good news. The bad news is, of course, the consulates are not taking most visa appointments unless there's an emergency or a reason for them to grant you the visa in today's COVID-19 climate, and the closures except for emergency cases.
Right. So I'd like to deviate from the topic a little bit, but being a senior attorney from Harvard Law School, what is your advice to the budding, specifically the Desi attorneys, younger attorneys who want to make a career in immigration? Do you advise them to take that route, or they should be, I know you also do corporate law, but then what is your advice?
Yeah, I don't do any corporate or real estate law. I used to do that 25, 30 years ago. Now I do exclusively US immigration law, focusing on employment-based immigration. It's a great question. My general advice is, I don't care what occupation or what profession we as Desis choose. Do it with passion and do it with compassion, especially in the area of immigration. If we don't have a heart and we don't care about people, and if you're doing it just to make a living, then don't do it. Do it because you genuinely want to help people. Because when we care, that care and concern for people shows in the work that we do. For those who may not know, I actually started my law firm because I didn't have a good experience with my immigration lawyer who was back in New York over 30 years ago. And I felt that the person only cared about the fees and about taking care of the case. So the two things I always teach junior lawyers, the young people in my law firm, are from the client's perspective. One, from client's perspective, I don't care how much you know unless I know how much you care. We have to have care, love, and compassion for our clients to do a great job, because when we put ourselves in their shoes, that's when we will actually take care of them as if they are ourselves or our closest family members. I never talk to a client like it's a client. I talk to every person as if it's my family member, my sister, my niece, my cousin, my child, asking me for advice. What should I do? How do I do it? Where are the gray areas? What can I do? What are the options, etc. The second rule I tell my all young lawyers is, although the word file, F-I-L-E, has the same letters of the alphabet as L-I-F-E, life, that everything, and this is something I came up with one day, that in fact, it is not a file that we process, but it is somebody's life. And it is such a privilege and an honor for any client to trust their lives in our hands. And if we as lawyers, immigration lawyers, or any lawyers of any area, don't look at it as having a dramatic, life-changing impact on a person's life, then we are not doing justice to the client, to their life, or in fact to our own soul and atma, or spirit, because only when we serve others do we get fulfillment and served. And I believe that there is cosmic care and concern. Everything in this world is about helping each other in a cosmic fashion. So certainly if you want to do immigration, do it, but give it 100%. I remember when I was studying law, a senior told me that the law is a jealous mistress. That was 35 years ago. It may not be a politically correct way to say it in America, but you cannot cut corners. We have to know our subject matter day in and day out. You have to be top in your fields, and you have to dedicate your time, your life, your energy, your attention, mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally, to give 100% to our clients. And if we are not willing to do that, then I don't care if you're a doctor, an engineer, a lawyer, any area, you're never going to be shining in your career. And I'm guessing if you're talking to me, it's because you want to be the best. And I always believe there's a lot of place on the top for the best, because unfortunately, some people try to cut corners, but I don't think that's a way to do justice to your soul, to your parents, to your ancestors, or even to your own intellect. God gave us brains to use it to help, and a heart to help others. So let's use those.
Excellent, excellent. We are running out of time. We still have 8 minutes, but I will take one last caller. Jayesh from, I guess, not sure, North Carolina. Jayesh, you're on the air. Only one question, please. Jayesh, are you still there?
Jayesh.
Hi, Ms. Murthy. So my question is, I'm currently in H1B visa, but I'm in my 6th year. The company has started the GC process, but they have just initiated it, so it is going to take some time. I have very limited time left, only 7 months to be exact. So my question is, should I now try for different employers and switch to a different employer to process the GC quickly? Or you think I should stick with my company and see how it goes? They have given me November as the time frame to file perm application, and my max out is March 31st. So is it wise for me to switch a company now or stay here and see how it goes?
So again, now we are getting very, very, very case specific, and I don't know enough in this discussion in the next 2 or 3 minutes
Yeah,
to do the details. But just as a general rule, don't switch employers. General rule. Again, I don't know the specifics because most new companies have a minimum 6 month to 1 year wait before they will start the green card process for an employee to determine if that employee is going to work out. I always tell people don't jump from the frying pan to the fire and sometimes a known devil is better than an unknown angel. And second, you have so much time. You knew 6 years ago you had 6 years remaining. For whatever reason, it didn't get done. Look at the other options. If your spouse is on an H1B with an I-140 approval, can you apply for the H4 and the H4 EAD immediately so you can stay and work? Can you switch to an F1 to get an F1 OPT to try and do F1 OPT and a CPT through some particular universities that offer it? Again, be very careful because USCIS looks at those as potential problems. So talk to a lawyer, whether it's us at the Murthy law firm, as Dan suggested at murthy.com, or whether it's some other lawyer that you're very comfortable dealing with, Jayesh, because the most important thing is you don't want to regret that years later saying, or months later, oh, I wish I had known this. I wish I had spent a couple $100s, few $100s to get specific advice when I had maybe an opportunity or some other options to consider. Packing up and leaving the country for a year, that's easy to do. But is that your only option, especially when there's a pandemic and travel and sitting in an airline, as I said earlier, for 24 hours may not be the healthiest and safest way to protect yourself and your loved ones from not getting COVID-19. So think about the options. Be careful when you jump from one employer to the other because you don't know if the next employer will fire you in 2 months or keep you, and whether somebody already has all the paperwork. But if they're ready to file for you, it's end of August. In 2 or 3 months by November, almost no other employer will be able to file for you unless they already have the ads, have the thing, have everything ready, and have an arrangement with you to file for you on the day before you even join them for employment. So everything has a level of risk. Talk to an attorney. I think this is one where I would say definitely you need to consult just to be sure that you're not going to regret that you didn't talk to someone, Jayesh.
All right. Thank you. I said last caller, but then somebody called and he said he's from Maryland, your hometown.
Oh.
So I need to take this. Hi, Amar. How you doing?
Hi. Hey, I'm doing great. Firstly, thanks to Sakshi's team, and it's a really privilege for all of us, in giving time from Sheela Murthy, ma'am. You are one
Thanks
of
for
the
the
inspiration, ma'am. Yeah, thank you. So I'll put it short. So I have a scenario where, my employer is one of your clients, and my case is also, your team has helped me, like in responding to an audit on my firm. So it's been 10 months. I was just still wondering, would it take even this long? So in December, there was an audit. In December, they filed it, and there was an audit last month, and they responded last month. So my max out is on February. So I would like to know the chances so that I can plan to get my...
Yeah.
As long as the audit is pending, if it's more than 365 days since your perm was filed, then your original perm was filed last December, then you are able to continue to extend your H1B, as you know, in 1 year increments, once 365 days are over. Unfortunately, what we're also seeing along with USCIS is because of the Trump's Buy American, Hire American, the whole policy of giving jobs to Americans, anytime an employer files an H1B or a green card for a foreign national, the administration thinks, oh, these people are being unpatriotic by doing this. So the Department of Labor has been issuing far more audits and taking way longer to approve them. Before we used to get approvals before the last 2 or 3 years, we would get approvals in a few months, couple months, and sometimes in a few weeks to 2 to 3 months. Now the delays are increasing, whether it's U.S. Department of Labor, Department of Homeland Security with USCIS, or as we know with U.S. Department of State with consulates abroad. So however long it takes, as long as you can at least file your H1 extensions in annual increments, you buy yourself time. And with the kind of experience that I know, sometimes I joke, and once I remember one of our attorneys called Pamela Janice, who's based in Seattle, Washington, someone said, is that a good attorney? I remember saying, if I have to go through my immigration, God forbid, all over again, I would hire almost any attorney at the Murthy law firm, because we are so strict in the checking the knowledge and the experience, the kind of questions.
Sheelaji, I'm sorry to cut you there. Seattle is your satellite office?
That's correct.
So people can also get consultation locally in Washington area.
West Coast time, in Pacific time. Yep, that's exactly. Thank you, Dan, for asking. But the bottom line is we have incredible team. So if they've filed it, I can't say 100%, because 100% none of us may be alive tomorrow to 100%. Nobody can guarantee anything. But we have probably the best team in the entire world in U.S. immigration law. Brilliant, caring, dedicated attorneys. I often refer to them the positive spin of ABCD. I know they use ABCD negatively for Indian Desis, but I use awesome, brilliant, caring, and dedicated ABCD to describe each of my staff members at Murthy Law Firm. So if you are with us, you're in excellent hands. Whatever it is, we've replied, we will fight, we will do the best job. And it isn't that one attorney's knowledge that we actually sit in a group, 20 of us, 22 of us, and brainstorm for an hour on how we can make a case stronger or fight back or respond to a USCIS RFE or a Department of Labor audit. So you're in very good hands. Thank you for using us. Clearly, your employer has fantastic taste in selecting the best law firm in the world to help you. So you're lucky to have a good employer that takes good care of you.
All right, Sheelaji, I think we're almost out of time, but then you have a closing statement, please be real quick.
Okay, well, Dan, thank you very much to each and every one of you that is participating and made time today to listen to us, to tune in, and only good things come to you. I know it's a stressful time in America. I know there's a lot going on in the world, but there are people like Murthy Law Firm, like Dan, people who genuinely want to help educate and empower you. Please take advantage of all those free benefits, free opportunities you have. Go to murthy.com, and we look forward to continuing to help you, your family, and your friends in any possible way. Stay safe. Have a wonderful afternoon. And thank you again.
Thank you, Sheelaji. You've just seen Ms. Sheela Murthy from the Murthy Law Firm. This is Dan Nandan. Thanks for watching, and we'll try to bring more shows. There is a follow-up immigration show at 6 p.m. today, Eastern Time. I think it's a recorded show today. So if you have questions, you can watch us every Wednesday at 6 p.m. But I'd like to see if I can, bring Sheelaji back. And thank you. Signing off, this is Dan.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.